Okay, this video is the hourglasses of life and death. And so basically, I first got the idea about this from seeing the movie Seven Seals by Ingrid Bergman. And this is the medieval knight playing chess with death. And that's what we all do. We play chess with death and we try to make the best moves to buy ourselves more time to hold off checkmate by death. And, you know, one of my kids thought this was cool, this photograph, and he drew this painting here with an hourglass, and he's playing chess with death. And I thought, gee, that's kind of clever. I like that. Okay, and so I started, studying different issues with regard to health and longevity, and I came to the conclusion we got a whole bunch of these hourglasses where we play chess with death. And here's how it works. I started thinking about this mostly after I've been studying the kidney lately. I'm trying to understand how the kidney relates to the brain. And the kidney is great in the sense we can track it very precisely with GFR, glomerular filtration rate. And when you got a GFR drops below 60, that's considered significant kidney disease. And then when it gets down to 10, you have to go on dialysis. It's typically abbreviated CKD for chronic kidney disease, end-stage renal disease when you start getting down around 10. So basically, you can track that real precisely. And the great thing about it is if you catch yourself while you still got a reasonable amount of kidney function, this means you got about 600,000 nephrons. This means you only got about 100,000 nephrons. You can do a whole bunch of things to protect. The best thing to protect the kidneys is go on a very low protein diet. Not even low protein, very low protein diet. We're talking about 0.3 grams per kilogram per day. You're going to end up being somewhere in the ballpark of the low 20s in the number of grams of protein you eat per day. You might need essential amino acid supplement, or you might need keto analogs. You might not, and it all has to be plant-based, 100% vegan, because that protects your kidneys the best. I talked about that in other lectures. I'll talk about that more in the future. But the point is, you can track your kidneys failing. This is the hourglass turning till your death. Okay. We know about the telomeres. Telomeres are like the shoelaces where they're sort of capped at the end with plastic. They're on the ends of chromosomes, and every time the DNA polymerase, when your cell replicates, it can't get to the end of the chromosome, so the chromosome shortens with each cell replication. And eventually you reach something called the Hayflick limit by Leonard Hayflick. He's a microbiologist who worked with human tissue cultures, and he found that after about, actually I should have wrote 60 on there. Some people even say 70, but let's just call it 60 to 70 cell divisions. And then the chromosome shortening extends into essential genes, and the cell just basically goes into senescence and dies. All right, so you only get that many cell divisions. Let's say it's about 60. 60 is the most common number I've heard. Anyways, this is the hourglass running. That's also why you don't want to be a big meat eater and keep activating mTOR and accelerating the rate of cell replication in your somatic body cells, meaning not your germ cells, not your stem cells. Because you accelerate your aging, you accelerate the arrival of your death. Okay, the next thing is the heart. Normal ejection fraction, let's say, is 60 as measured by ultrasound, for example. You echocardiogram, you basically drop that down into worsening and worsening congestive heart failure, then you die, okay, when the congestive heart failure starts getting around 10 for your ejection fraction. You can have a sudden event with a myocardial infarction. You can have gradually progressive worsening through atrial fibrillation, for example. A lot of it comes from plugging up the arteries of your heart. So what I'm saying is these are all ways to measure the hourglass of time we have in life. As the liver starts to deteriorate, because fatty liver, which I can tell you the vast majority of the patients have that are over 50 years of age, it can progress into NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and that can progress into fibrosis, cirrhosis, portal hypertension, and all the sequelae of portal hypertension, liver failure, attempted liver transplant, death. Okay? Pancreas, beta cells make insulin. With diabetes, you typically accumulate fat first in the skeletal muscles. That leads to postprandial hyperglycemia after eating. Then you accumulate more and more fat in the liver, and you start getting fasting hyperglycemia, where you have a high blood glucose even when you're fasting. And then you start accumulating fat in the pancreas. You get fatty atrophy of the pancreas, where you've lost your beta cells in your pancreas, and then you become permanently insulin dependent. So that is the hourglass of destruction, the path towards death with regard to the pancreas and diabetes. Here it is in the thyroid. Chronic leaky gut leading to autoimmune Hashimoto's or Graves thyroiditis, as well as that's added on by goitrogenic foods like soy, cruciferous, and the halogens. And then you end up, if you don't reverse that fast enough, you're going to end up permanently hypothyroid. Okay, in the spine, you got the disc from the cervical, the neck, all the way through the thoracic, down into the lumbar, and I see them progressively. One fails, the one above it fails because you get segmental instability, accelerated adjacent segment degeneration, and then you fail all of them. I routinely see people who fail all the discs. You know, they're walking with a walker, they're all fragile and weak. And the main cause of that is ischemia. GP affects it, F- affects it, but the main cause is ischemia. Totally preventable, okay? You know, trauma can make it worse as well, but most people it's an ischemic phenomenon as well as the things I talked about, GP and F-. Okay, and then in the brain, let's say you're starting out with a baseline IQ of about 120. You drop that, 60 points, down to 60, you're demented. Okay, so the good news is that once you realize that all of these biological structures in your body, they're fragile. You have to take care of them. You have to protect them. And the best thing to protect most of them is just, you know, avoid head trauma, of course. But, you know, eat a low-fat, low-sodium vegan diet with no oil. That optimizes blood flow to all these areas. Avoid the toxins I talked about in multiple lectures. And you protect all of these things. But just to realize, this is the game you're playing. You're playing chess with death, and these are the hourglasses that are running on every single one of us. And the good news is there's lots of things we can do to slow these things down. So I hope that's encouraging to you.